So the 7 basic principles of geology. Let's go. Now before we get started with that, let me change something real quick. I am now fancy. This video is going to be a really quick video because I have been unfortunately procrastinating. My classes just started back for college and I just got back into playing Osu, which is a mistake. I really should not be doing it this week, but I did it. Too late now. I gotta live with my decisions, and y'all do too because this video is going to be less than 5 minutes. Woo, let's go. Also, before anyone gets on me in the comments, I'm aware it is pronounced Os. I don't care though. I don't like saying that. Osu sounds better in my opinion, so I'm going to keep saying Osu. First, some history. I'm going to give you 2 names. Do with them what you will. The first one is James Hutton. He is called the father of modern geology. The second guy is Charles Lyell. He wrote the principles of geology, which is coincidentally what we'll be discussing in this video. So if I didn't include him in this video, I think my geology teacher would come and strangle me. But yeah, he wrote a 3-volume set, which basically outlined the 7 principles we're going to be going over today. Now, before I start listing these principles, I just want to say something real quick. I like to call these laws the common sense laws because I'm going to say them and you're going to be like, wow, isn't this a given? Why did someone have to sit down and write this? But no, people did have to sit down and write this because you can build upon these principles to make other assumptions and yada yada. It's a big process. Okay, the first principle of geology is called uniformitarianism. It's a long word, but you probably heard it before. And that just states that all the geological processes have been occurring at the same rate. Everything works as a continuous and uniform process. That one's sort of hard to demonstrate. Normally I like to draw something to sort of give you a better idea, but I think we'll just leave that one at that. The second one is called original horizontality, and I can show this one off. The meaning of original horizontality is that because of gravity, sediment will accumulate in fairly horizontal strips. You won't get any weird wonky bits. I'm pretty sure you know what sediment is. Just in case you don't, sediment's just any loose rock that's separated from its parent rock because of erosion or weathering. Like all this sand you can see right here, that could be considered sediment. Oh, I just got blinded by the sun. Oh, look at that shadow. I look holy. Back to what I was saying. But that sediment, here's an example, will accumulate in a flat strip. You're not going to see something like this. Pretend this is a sediment, by the way. You're not going to see something like this. Like I said earlier, I refer to these laws as the common sense laws for a reason, and this is one of them. Because who in their right mind would think sand is going to look like that? What? Obviously, you're going to have some curves. It's just the layout of the land. Like if I took a whole layer of that, plopped it over everything, yes, it's going to be curved. However, it's not going to be suddenly stacking up right here for no reason whatsoever. This law in particular is pretty important when it comes to sedimentary rocks because you can use this to help relative date the rocks. By the way, relative date is different from numerical age. Relative date is not specific. It just gives an age relative to the other things around it. Numerical age is a specific date. You can say like, I'm 16. Relative age is simply saying this sand is older than that sand, or vice versa. As you can see, I gave no specific dates, but you still know the relative age compared to that. The third geologic principle is the principle of superposition, and this principle directly ties into the original horizontality one. Here's an example I made from a previous video. If you were to think of this as a sedimentary stack, the principle of original horizontality means that gravity makes them settle in this direction, but as you can see, it's different types of sediment. You have maybe sand right here, and then you have something maybe with an iron oxide at the top with a whole range in between. Okay, because of this third principle, superposition, we know that this part is the oldest, that part's the youngest. Again, I would consider this common sense because if something's at the bottom of a stack and then you stack everything else on top of it, obviously everything else stacked on top of it is newer. It can't be on top if the things weren't underneath it to be stacked upon. The fourth geologic principle is a bit of a mouthful. It's called original lateral continuity. And I have a hard time explaining this one without an example, so just give me 1 second. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say I'm in a dried up riverbed. So as you can see, the river's pretty small now. It's more like a stream. But at one point, it was powerful enough to erode this layer of rock down to another layer of sandstone. So you have several different layers. Now, if you're a geologist in the field, this principle allows you to know that this rock right here, this orange or this yellow rock, is the same type of rock as that rock. It makes it a lot easier for geologists in the field so they don't have to take twice as many samples. So like if I was in the field and I was like, okay, I'll take a sample of this rock, that, and that. And then I think, oh, well, I'm going to have to go to this side and do the same thing. No, I don't have to do that. Because of the original lateral continuity, we know that these layers can be deposited over a wide area. This law just lets us establish that we know that's the same as that one, that same as that one, that same as that one. And since we know these layers can be established in a broad area, which is what this rule's technical definition is, we can establish that probably for a good chunk around this exposed area, that it's going to have this same pattern of yellow on bottom, pink, sand, and then orange. The fifth principle is called the principle of cross-cutting relationships. I made an entire video about this, so I'll link that right up here. It should be appearing right now. You should see a little thing up there. Now, if you don't care about watching that video and you're like, just tell me now, to that I say, okay, it's not going to be as detailed, but I guess that principle just states that anything that cuts across something is younger than the thing it cuts across. You have a nice stack of rocks. Oldest, youngest. And we run over here, and we have some igneous rock or some magma pushed through the earth and then hardened into this. Because of this rule, we know that this igneous rock right here is younger than the rest of the rocks around it. Think about it like this. If you take a cake and you put a slice in it, what came first, the cake or the slice? Obviously the cake, because if you did not have the cake in the first place, there would be nothing to slice into. The sixth principle is called the principle of inclusion. I also have that in that video, so I'm going to just refer you back to that video. But that one states that if you have a rock layer that has bits of other rocks inside of it, so like look at this. You have this nice stack, but then you have this weird black bit, and this black part has bits of other rocks inside of it. That means that these bits came first, and this new black layer is the younger layer. Oh, sunset's looking pretty dramatic. Look at me. Aww. And you can think of this principle like this. What came first, the chips in a chocolate chip cookie or the chocolate chip cookie? Obviously the chips, because the chips had to exist first before they could be put into the cookie. Just like these bits had to exist first before they could become surrounded by the igneous rock. And last but not least, we have the seventh principle. This one is the principle of baked contacts. And continuing the trend of talking about igneous rocks. And this one's pretty weird, but I'll try to explain it the best I can. Okay, so you have this sedimentary rock stack, but then interrupting this stack, you have this igneous rock. At first glance, you could think Rule 3 would apply here, which is younger units develop on top of older units. So you'd think, well, that's the oldest, second, third, fourth, fifth. But the thing is, that's wrong. Sometimes you'll have cracks in these rocks where magma, which is slowly making its way to the surface, will go into that crack because it's the path of least resistance and sort of like expand, pushing the layers apart. The issue is, if you're referring to Rule 3, how are you going to know? Well, here's the deal. Magma is hot. It's really hot. So even if it doesn't include little bits of the surrounding rock, like it would have in the sixth principle, there's still going to be evidence that it's there, and it's something called contact metamorphosis. So if you have an igneous rock surrounded by other rocks, you can go up to the edge between the two rocks, take a few samples there, and then figure out what type of rock they are. If it's a rock that's formed under contact metamorphism, which it's a huge process, we're not going to talk about it now. And if it's one of those types of rocks, and you have that rock on both sides, then you'll know that this part came in later. It snuck in sometime and is actually younger than the rock above it and below it. If we want to compare it to food, you can sort of think of it like putting jelly in a donut. You'll have the donut first, and then you'll squeeze the jelly inside of it, and obviously the jelly is not going to pick up and break off bits of the donut, but the dough surrounding the jelly is going to get wet and soggy. Think of that as the rocks that have undergone contact metamorphism. They have become that soggy bread, and us geologists can use that to figure out, hey look, this part right here, that's young. And that's it for this video. Hopefully in my upcoming videos I can start getting into more interesting things, but I was thinking to myself, who am I if I don't go over the basic 7 geologic principles in the geology series? Like, come on. That's scandalous. I can't not do that. But thank you for all the support. It's very kind, very kind. Glad to see y'all are here. Please subscribe. What else do they say? Oh yeah, follow me on Twitch, blah, 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 all that garbage. Thank you. Have a good day. No, seriously though, like, thank you. It's very kind y'all watching these videos still. Woo! Good job.